think it's absolutely wonderful to have all of you women together with all of our young cadets today and taking the time to come together and share your stories and your honest feelings and thoughts about your time and your time after and your kind of your journey through life, because I know that for our young cadets it means so much to have that first-hand connection. For many, that though some may be not thinking about military, some may change their minds as they get older, because that does happen.
To the Green River Ordnance Plant. I graduated from high school in 1942 and worked at JCPenney for $11 a week. And I got the job at the Ordnance Plant and got $24 a week. I was wealthy. And I first went to work as the secretary to the head of the guard department. And we hired the guards and trained them, and I kept track of all of it. He was a retired man from the Navy, had 20 years as a New York City cop. And he'd say D's and does and them, and he was a fascinating man. Well, after we got all them trained, I went to work in production control. And we made 1,000-pound bombs, 1,600-pound bombs, and bazooka rockets. And they claimed that our bazooka rockets were in the soldiers' hands within 48 hours. So I was secretary of production control, and I had to keep track of when the trains came in to bring products for our manufacture. And if they came in before 6 a.m., we had a free day. Otherwise, we only had 3 days to unload the trains. And if it was over 3 days, then we had to pay demurrage, which was a fine, and that was a big no-no.
Did you have a childhood dream job, and did you ever get to pursue it?
No, because I think being one of 10 and third from the oldest, what he did was babysit the new babies,
Yes.
feed the new babies. So then there was a young guy that came around when I was about 19, and he said he wanted to marry me, and I looked him right in the eye and I said, "You get lost." He didn't have any money, I didn't have any money, so why get, I knew what my mother had gone through with all those 10 children, right?
Yeah.
But it was fun, and we had a good time.
Typically, what made you decide to join the military? Did you see an ad, or did someone tell you
I
about
can't
it?
remember, isn't that funny? At this age, you don't remember a lot. I mean, you really don't. But, no, I just knew that I wanted to go to college, and I knew that was the way to do it.
Yeah.
I wanted to go badly because I could get college out of it on a GI Bill. That was my reason for going, really. And it worked out great. Yeah, I went to college. I got 3 years of college, and the GI Bill was fantastic. It really was. Yeah.
What did you want to go to college for?
I went to, what did I want to go to get a degree, mainly. And because I knew I would need one.
Yeah.
So I, like I said, I went and I joined, and then I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. I had a friend that was going, so the two of us went. Oh, it was fun. You're from Brooklyn? What they did to Brooklyn when they fixed it was wonderful. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic.
Were there specific things you wanted to do when you went to college?
Yep, I went into costume design, and I learned to sew, and I made my own wedding dress.
You did? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Did you ever have like your own career through that, like your own job you built through there?
I worked at Lord & Taylor's in New York for about 2 years.
Impressive.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I had a wonderful time. The Navy was the best thing I ever did for myself. It really was.
Did you make lifelong friends while you're going through the
Oh,
Navy?
yeah, I still hear from one who's up in Pennsylvania, and she'll call me, maybe every other week and say, how you doing? You still there? Yeah, and I'm not sure older than she is. Yeah, so we have a good, it's great to be stationed in Norman, Oklahoma without a drop of water inside. And the reason we got there was that we built it because most of the kids wanted to go back home where they came from. And we wanted to go as far as the government would send us. So we ended up, nobody wanted to go to Norman, so that's why we ended up there, which worked great.
What is one thing you remember more than anything else being in the Navy?
Oh, the friends I made. Like I said, there were 4 of us that kind of clicked right after that, and we had a wonderful time.
Well, what branch did you serve in?
I served in the Coast Guard.
Really?
Nice.
For how long?
3 years. And I started in, well, I left the job. I was working in Allentown, Pennsylvania. That's where I was brought up. And for 3 years, I worked at the community chest, and it was what it stands for. It helped everybody around. So it was not only a one day that they collected money for people, but it was an entire year. So I had 3 years with them, and I enjoyed it. I was the secretary to the man who ran the organization.
Oh, wow.
And it was an interesting job, and I liked it, but I don't know. I got the urge to leave there. It was 3 years that I left there and joined the Coast Guard. I had 2 brothers, and they both were in the service. And my parents were left with no more children around. But they didn't really mind. They were happy that we were happy.
Have you been recognized for a lot of your serving and your participation?
Lately,
Those kind of, yeah.
I rode a yellow car, with the top down, in a parade that they said would last a few minutes in Sarasota. But it wasn't a few minutes. It
Probably
was
an hour.
It certainly was. They had the top down on this yellow convertible. I always think of that yellow convertible. And I waved, and I waved.
Did you enjoy the attention?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good for me, and I had a wonderful driver.
Everybody wanted to do their job and do it right. And it was interesting when we moved our office out to one of the lines to get to meet the people who actually were making the ammunition. And we were out there for a while, and then they moved us back in the office. And I regretted it because I thought it was interesting to be out where the action is. So it was fascinating.
Do you want to?
This was, we all wore this.
Look at that from the plant.
Green
thing,
ordinance.
yeah.
And my daughter got, remember when we had the kind of Jeeps?
Yeah.
And that was when I graduated from high school in June, and I had a job out there in July.
Oh, you're quick.
And this was the guard band that I worked for first, and these were all the people. And they were fascinating people. And then there was a guy that taught me jujitsu.
I was a member of the WWII. I went in when it was still WAAC. And about 6 months later, we were integrated into the regular Army, so it became the WAC.
Oh, okay.
Okay? There were no changes other than we were then officially Army. And we were attached, I was attached to the Air Corps. I guess wherever they sent different, girls.
Yeah.
Were allowed to take one uniform. I took the Eisenhower uniform, but unfortunately I would have worn it, but it was stripped. I wore it. I mean, after the service, you really couldn't tell that it was Army,
Yeah.
issue, and so I stripped everything off. But I loved it. I mean, for us it was new. Yeah. I worked primarily in 2 areas. I worked in budget and fiscal, where I had to assign which fund your uniforms came out of and which the other things came out of. And then when I went overseas, I worked in statistical control. I liked it because the job meant, first of all, we didn't go in early. We went in after the reports came back to the headquarters. And whenever we were finished, we were allowed to go home. So you became very fast and efficient. But I did like it. I liked the work. It was a little, depressing, because we kept records
Yeah.
of how many flights went up, how many returned, missing in action, and so on. And I worked at headquarters company, so we had, several bomber groups, fighter groups, so.
My name is Mary Bales, like you bail out of jail and after. I always say, I was a nurse in the Air Force for 26 years. I went in 1958, so I feel like that I sort of grew up with the Air Force, because in 1947, the Air Force became an independent part of the Department of Defense. And before that, it was the Army Air Corps during these ladies' time. And so during that time, we had the Eisenhower jacket. We had many of the uniforms, like we had our summer uniform, we called them the silver tans. So as an officer, we had to buy our uniforms, and we got an initial amount of money to buy our uniforms, our basic uniforms. So my silver tans, I bought them, and I never wore them, because during those days I was a second lieutenant. So I wore white uniforms all the time. I went to school in nursing in the dark ages, in the early 50s, and by that we didn't have disposable things. We had to sharpen our needles because we didn't want to give shots with burrs in them, and we had to reuse our needles. We had to reuse our syringes, and we had to reuse the things, the towels, and of course now they still use the instruments that doctors use in operation. But we had to sterilize all those things, and we had to clean them and wash them. So I spent a month in Central Supply doing the sterilization and sharpening the needles and all like that. But we had to do all of that, in my day.
I think my grandmother was 29 when she got married, and she told me when I was younger, she was called an old maid when she was 25 and 26 by her friends, because she hadn't been married.
The whole family was, you're not married yet. And I had so many sisters that got married younger.
In England, we had 19 weddings.
Wow.
I mean, amongst our company.
Wow.
They made their gowns from parachutes, and they would
They make a
scrounge.
pretty gown.
I mean, everyone sort of got into it, added whatever they could. We did have 19 weddings.
imagine.
Wow.
Wonderful, yeah.
Oh, nice girls don't join the
Oh,
military.
yeah.
Did anyone treat you like that?
Oh, no.
No.
I feel there was this, both what she expressed, but I don't think, in other words, they welcomed us with open arms because it actually meant they could be released for active duty.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we were that well liked, but I mean, we got along, there were no hostility. And, socially, I guess it was nice, perhaps, that they had women around, I think.
Well, my mother-in-law was in the Army, and she and her husband-to-be was in the Army. They met in North Africa.
No, it's my mother-in-law.
And
My mother-in-law, not your mother-in-law, my
I'm
mother-in-law.
sorry, I'm sorry. That's what happens when you're 93. Anyhow, they met, and they were going to get married, and the president died, so everything was postponed for 30 days. And now they are gone, and they are both buried in Arlington.
Oh, wow.
And they were a fascinating couple.
Oh, which uniform did you wear your favorite boots with? So you're saying that Eisenhower's
Oh, my boots? I know you kids are laughing because today they, I guess, wear high shoes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to me, it was something I never had, and these were the boots. The boots I kept there over 70 years ago.
Wow. That's awesome. Oh my goodness.
And see, they didn't wear high shoes at
No,
that time,
short.
so they were the most comfortable things ever on my feet, and I loved them.
I wish we
You can still get your
Silly,
boots.
I know,
You can
getting
still put
attached
them
to a pair of shoes, but if they're comfortable, oh my. I mean, now they wear high, don't they? The kids wear high shoes?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they're very comfortable, yeah.
Do you still fit with like?
Oh, I wouldn't even try. My feet have gotten considerably bigger. And I just thought you'd like to see them.